good morning, or afternoon, or evening, or middle of the night, whenever you are watching this. Welcome to today's lesson on books and semiotics. Let's get started. First off, let's start with defining semiotics. Semiotics is the study of the relationship between symbols and meanings. Technically, it's the study of signs and symbols. But for us, we're going to be looking at specifically the part of it that studies symbols and their meanings. Semiotics is concerned with anything that can stand for something else. And one particular part of semiotics that's important to us is the difference between denotative and connotative meanings. So denotative meaning is the literal meaning of a symbol. If you open up a dictionary and look up the meaning of a word, that is the denotative meaning. Connotative meaning is the symbolic or associated meaning of a symbol. These might be your memories, your associations, your emotions that you have with a symbol, or more cultural meaning of a symbol. So for instance, if I say the word dog, we have a shared dictionary definition of dog, but that's not the same as your own personal meaning for the word dog, which might include your own family pet or the time that the neighbor's scary dog tried to bite you. And those are the connotative meanings, right? Another example of this might be that my mom regularly texts me the eggplant emoji because she has made eggplant for dinner. And it always makes me feel very embarrassed when she does that because to me, I have a different connotative meaning, but she sees the eggplant emoji only as having a denotative meaning. And so we are not using the same meanings for that symbol. Now, symbols have different parts to them. And in semiotics, we say that there are three different major parts: the sign, the signifier, and the signified. The sign is the symbol and the thing it makes you think of. So in this case, the shape of a heart and the idea of love, perhaps. The signifier is the symbol itself. So in this case, this particular shape. And the signified is the meaning that's attached to the symbol. So here, love, right? So the sign is both parts. The signifier is the symbol, and the signified is the meaning attached to it. We'll come back to that in a little bit. Now, there are three types of signs. The first is an icon, which is a pictorial, which means picture, representation of the thing signified. Emoji are icons in their denotative sense. The way that my mom thinks about emoji is as icons, that they should look like the thing that they are representing. An index is a visual cue that something is present, like muddy footprints or smoke. Smoke indicates that there's a fire. Muddy dog footprints indicates that there's a dog, etc. So an index is a visual cue that something is present. And a symbol is something that does not resemble what it means. So this, why does this mean at? I don't know. We just decided. as a culture that this means at, and we all agreed, and well, we didn't all agree, just like some people agreed and then told the rest of us, and then we said okay, and so now this means at, and we all have to use it in our emails all the time, and on Twitter and in other spaces, and that is just part of our lives now, and that is how the world works, and the end. But who decided that? Why is that at? I don't know. It doesn't seem like at. That swirly part doesn't look like a T at all. Like, it doesn't make any sense. That's just how the world works. All right, so let's go through some principles of semiotics. There are 4 major principles that I want to talk about here. And here's where we come back to that thing about signifier and signified. So the signifier, remember, that's the symbol, the actual like written down thing or thing that you can see. And the signified, the meaning that you're attaching to it, add up to be the sign. So the sign is both things. The sign is the meaningful thing. So if a tree falls in the forest and you don't attach any meaning to it, it's not a sign. If you draw a picture of an eggplant, it's not, and nobody attaches any meaning to it, it's not a sign. Okay, so you have to have a symbol and a meaning, and those together equal a sign. And before I gave you these 3 things, right? Sign and signified and signifier on the same slide with the heart, right? But I didn't give it to you as this formula. So this is how those 3 things go together. A sign does not stand on its own. It is part of a system. Its meaning is contextual. That is, sometimes an eggplant is just an eggplant, but sometimes it's not, right? It depends on the context. And we all know this. We all know that words and hearts and winky faces depend on what's around them and what other things have been going on. So how you're using something depends on the other stuff you've been using around it. And all of our communication is embedded in systems of meaning, and all of our communication is contextual. The same with signs and symbols. Signs are not value-free. There's no such thing as a symbol that is meaningless, because they're always somewhere and they're always in some kind of context. And so they're always adding meaning to that context. They're always being influenced by the meanings of that context. And so there are always histories of context there, and there's always contextual flow happening from around it. And what's going on around it is influencing it. So for example, there's a very famous piece of art by Banksy, who is an urban, street artist, graffiti artist, who works primarily out of London, but has been traveling all around the world and doing street art, and this piece of art, which I'll come back in and add to this slide, or maybe put in the next slide for you. This piece of art has a person who looks like they're a protester, who has like a bandana over their face and looks like they're maybe gonna throw something, and they look very violent, and this person is painted on the wall on a wall in Palestine, right? And Palestine is a place that has had a lot of violence and a lot of protests, and where this kind of violence is not at all uncommon. And when Banksy painted this, there had been protest for LGBTQ rights recently in that space, that had been pretty violently shut down, but among other things, there just have been a lot of protests there that have been violently ended. And instead of this, and so that is the context of this space, right? And what Banksy chose to paint there was this person who looks very violent, who looks like they're engaging in protest, who is in this action of throwing something, and the thing they're throwing, the person's entirely in black and white, their face is masked, which has a different context right now. And the thing they're throwing is a bouquet of flowers. And the flowers are the only thing that are in color. And there's no way that can be read as neutral, as a neutral statement, as a neutral thing, right? It's not just some paint on some wall. It can't ever be. Signs are not value free. Signs don't stand on their own. Signs are always part of systems. They're always contextual. They're always connected to the world that they're in. And they don't work as communication unless you and I agree on what they mean. Because otherwise, it's like when I speak Russian. It doesn't work. Unless you know Russian, then it works fine. Well, then it still might not work because my Russian's pretty bad. It's very, very rusty. It's been a long time since I've spoken Russian very much. But if you and I don't agree on what the word means, then, or what the sign means, then it's not going to work to communicate, right? We have to both agree. That's the whole basis of codes, is that only you and I know and nobody else. All right. I don't know how to put the Banksy thing in here when I'm doing a video. I will put the Banksy image on the page that goes with this. Yes, I'll put the Banksy image on the page so that you will have it. Okay, look there. So now you should think of a sign that you are familiar with. It can be an icon, an index, or a symbol. And then you need to find a real live human being. They don't need to be physically near you. In fact, it's kind of better if they aren't. You can text them, that's fine. You can Snapchat them, whatever. Share it with another person in some way. And then find out if you and they have the same connotative meaning as they do. It can be not the same denotative meaning, but the same connotative meaning. Do you and they have the same emotions, memories, cultural associations, context for that sign? Or do you have different ones? And then identify whether your sign is an icon, an index, or a symbol. So you got to go away and do this. Pause the recording and go ahead and do it. And I will see you on the next slide. Time to talk about books. I do love books. All right, here we go. Let's roll. You read all about books in the textbook chapter. In order to not make this video be 100 years long, I am not going to get all into book technologies, even though I do love to nerd out about books very, 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 very much, but I will not. I do want you to think through these questions. Are books a mass media platform? Remember that to be a mass media platform, the medium has to meet all three of these criteria. Are books a mass media industry? Again, remember, to be a mass media industry, the medium needs to meet all three of these criteria. You're going to be answering these questions in the quiz, so think them through. Finally, and you don't need to answer all of these questions, but I do want you to start thinking about these issues. And in fact, actually, you do need to answer all of these questions. I totally lied. I want you to start to make a table because we're going to ask these questions about each of the rest of our types of media. So you can make a column that says, or a row, whichever direction you want to do it, that says books on one side, and then make the other way have kinds of communication does well, kinds of communication not well, advantages for communicating, disadvantages for communicating, who uses books, who makes books, cultural groups affected by books, and or cultural uses, who makes, and cultural groups affected by, and then fill that out for books. Okay, and then we're going to do that again for radio, for podcasts, for newspapers, for, right? And we're going to do this for all the different kinds of media industries that we go through. And don't say everyone. Try to be as specific as you can. Not everyone makes books. There are quite severe demographic skews in who can afford to be authors. There are quite severe demographic skews in who is represented in books. Especially if you get into like overlapping identity categories. There's not a section that you can go to in a bookstore that has a good selection of Black, female, queer, disabled superheroes. Straight, white, male, able-bodied superheroes, that, yes, very large selection. No problems there. Right? Try to think in as nuanced a way as possible here. Like, try to really think this through. We're not trying to say that there's good or bad. We're just trying to say, like, where is there a lot of representation already? Where is there not very much representation yet? And how is that working within the industry as a system? That's all we're trying to track, okay? So make a table, put it somewhere in your computer or in a notebook where you will be able to find it again, because we're going to add to this and add to this and add to this as we go along in this class, so that you, by the end of the course, have a good way to compare and contrast lots of different types of media and how they work and how they are similar to each other and different from each other. Okay? All right, here we go. We got to the homework page. Oh boy. So the very last thing, before next class, read the Dear Data PDF by Lupi and Posavec. It's posted on Schoology in the folder for this week. You need to have your notes on paper use with you when you watch the video for next week, because I'm going to go over how to make a data visualization using those notes that you have. So make sure you have those handy when you watch that video. And complete an engagement quiz 2 about books and semiotics so that you can get credit for that. Like last time, you will be able to take it multiple times and it is resumable. Unlike last time, I am going to make it all multiple choice so that you don't have to wait for me to grade it to find out how you did. So I think that's all. I will see you next class. Have a lovely day, night, 24-hour increment, whatever, life. Have a lovely life. I'll talk to you later. Bye.